Remember, in the course of discussing movies, the host will spoil plots. You've been warned. Listen to their screams. Greetings, ghouls and creeps, and welcome to Listen to Their Screams, a horror podcast where it feels like you're chatting with friends. And I am one of your friends, Dave. I'm joined as always by our other friend, Ike. Ike, how are you?
I'm doing pretty superb. I'm doing superb today.
Superb is good. Doesn't get much better than superb.
That's right.
Well, Ike, on today's episode, we're going to be reviewing Natty Knocks, which is available on a limited theater run and video on demand. We'll be talking about that movie in a little bit. Before we dive into that, let's take care of some of the usual things that we talk about. First off, special thanks to our wives, Monica and Kayla. Again, I say it every week. They're going to be on very soon. We know there are some people out there who like when the wives are on and it gets a little feisty. They like that. They're going to be on soon. We're due for a wives rebuttal. They will be on very soon, I promise. So stand by for that. Ike, before we get into our usual stuff every week, what have you been up to? Watch anything good this week? What all's been going on?
Yeah, for sure. So I've actually had a pretty, I guess relatively busy weekend type deal. I guess just to start from the top, last Friday after we recorded, because we record on Wednesdays, but the episode came out on Thursday. So on Friday, I went and saw the Terrifier in theaters. So that was really cool. Here where I'm at in Florida, we have two theaters. We have a classic, AMC Classic, and then we also have a, I don't know what they're called, just like a normal AMC. But you can pick your seats at the normal AMC. The Classic you can't. So we actually got there a little late, not like after the movie late, but like 10 minutes before. So like for us, we usually like to get there like 20, 30 minutes before. And we were worried because it's like a one-time event. So I was like, oh man, this theater might be pretty full when we get in there. We got in there and we were the only people in there.
Yeah.
I was like, what the heck?
Yeah, we went and saw it last week after we recorded, and there was just a few in ours. But it did pretty good. We'll talk about that in a little bit. It's in the news section, so we'll talk more about the Terrifier showing here in a little bit, and we can talk in our experiences we tie into that. Yeah. But us aside, it's done pretty well for itself, especially with no hype, no real promotional marketing behind it, and everything else. So I'm all about it, getting out there, getting a little exposure, making a little money. It all helps for moving forward and for Terrifier 3. So. Yeah,
absolutely. But other than that, horror-wise, Dave and I both on Saturday, we started the workings of playing a tabletop game for the video game Fallout. I would say Fallout, while it's not strictly a horror game, it does have some horror roots. So I'm just mentioning it because it has its moments. For those of us that played Fallout New Vegas back in the olden days, there were some pretty scary parts in there. There are some pretty inherently terrifying things about the concept of Fallout. So I wanted to mention that. But yeah, we're in the workings of doing that. We created our characters on Saturday, which for anybody who's ever played a D&D game knows that takes so long. It's so crazy. Yeah. Outside of that, I'm trying to think here. I started watching a show with my wife on Hulu called 11/22/63. It has James Franco in it, but it's actually about a teacher who has a chance to travel back in time to avert the death of John F. Kennedy. And basically it's talking about everything about that. And the reason I bring it up is because I would probably put this in the thriller category, or suspense / criminal drama type thing. So it's kind of an interesting theory and concept, and it was really good. It's just a short series, 8 episodes, but we've watched and finished that over the last week and a half or so. And lastly, I actually watched, it's not a horror movie, but I watched Barbie last night. We went to the theater and watched it, and while it's not horror, I got to give it some props. It was a really good movie. Honestly, it was a very surprising movie. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be, but it had a very existential dread kind of feeling to it. But also it had a few sad moments, so that was pretty cool. I greatly enjoyed it. So if you're a horror fan, maybe go check that out too.
Yeah. We're planning to go see Barbie this weekend. I'm actually very excited for it. I've been excited for it ever since I talked about it. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just that nostalgic feel, even though I didn't necessarily per se, play with Barbies or have Barbies. But my sister did, so it was always around, and it was still in pop culture, right? There was cereal, there was all that stuff, and so I'm looking forward to it as well. And it had a monster weekend, unreal.
Oh yeah,
It was like 160 million. I mean, it was unreal. Everybody was expecting, and Oppenheimer had a huge weekend as well, but it still wasn't close. Barbie blew it away, and it's but Barbie has a little more across the demos appeal. It hits a lot of different
yeah.
stuff. It hits the nostalgia. It hits kids. There's a lot of different things in there that it's hitting. And so yeah, we're going to see it this
No,
weekend,
yeah,
and I'm looking forward to it. Um,
yeah.
let's see. I watched lots of 80s stuff still. I'm still on my watch through the In Search of Darkness. But one thing that I did watch aside from that I highly recommend everybody watch, and I just happened upon this. I've heard of this. We may have even mentioned this. I don't know. I'm sure we've at least shared some of it on social media, I believe. But on Screambox, there you can now watch the documentary called Scream Queen: My Nightmare on Elm Street. It's for 2019, and it's a look at Mark Patton from Nightmare on Elm Street 2: Freddy's Revenge. He's the lead guy in that, and it talks about um, his his career, his life, um, as a homosexual man, as a homosexual actor, and what it was like walking that road through the 80s, particularly, and then what that meant to be in the lead role of a movie which has been defined as a very gay movie, quote unquote. And there's lots of this because shortly after this he disappeared. He moved to
Yeah.
Mexico, checked out, and really just disassociated from not only acting in Hollywood but just everything. Just life just really stepped back. And it really keys in on around 2015 when he came back and traveled back and did lots of convention appearances for the 30th anniversary of the film, uh, and started to accept what the movie was and what the movie means to a lot of people, and in his place in it. And he also got to confront a lot of people in situations that were difficult for him personally, including
Right.
the writer of the movie, which had long been a hurdle in his life, and they actually they have a sit down in it. Anyway, it's an excellent documentary. It is very very good. Um, and while Nightmare 2 is one of my least favorite of the nightmares, it does give me a different type of appreciation for the movie because of Mark Patton and the things he's been through, and he seems like, I mean, a really great guy for everything he's gone through, everything he's experienced. I'm not going to give it away. There's a lot to it, not just the Hollywood. There's a lot to his life, from his childhood, from just a lot. I highly suggest everybody see it. It's on Screenbox. It's a great watch. I can't recommend it enough. Again, even if Nightmare 2 is not one that you particularly like, doesn't matter. Does not matter. That it's not like they go scene by scene in the making of the movie. That's not what this is about. This is
Right.
about Mark Patton. This is about the situation, and it's an outstanding documentary. So I did want to talk about that and bring that up. I highly recommend everybody see it. It is a great documentary. But otherwise, that's pretty much all I've seen outside of some of the '80s stuff. Again, there's been some winners and losers there, but I'm plugging along. Uh, Today, not long before we recorded, I watched Alligator from 1980, and ooh, that's a fun one. Um, Not bad, but it's something. It is literally plays with a baby alligator that gets flushed into this down the toilet, and it eats some rats who have been tested upon with a growth hormone, so it makes the alligator grow uncharacteristically large and violent, and it's a whole thing. But it's something else. So anyway, that's what I've been doing. That's what I've been watching. So outside of my constant watching of Supernatural and The Simpsons, those are always in there. So that's that. So let's get on to our weekly game, Stump the Cohost. And this week we are back to playing Stump the Cohost. Now, for those of you who do not know, this is our Listen to the Screams trivia game. Ike and I have identical horror trivia decks of cards. We have shuffled them. We've just placed them. We have not gone through them. We just picked 2 cards, which is 4 questions. There's 2 questions per card. We will alternate asking each other these questions, and whoever gets the most right wins the game for the week. And then at the end of the year, when we do our 2023 recap, we will crown a Listen to the Screams trivia champ. And at this time, Ike is leading with a record of 2 wins, no losses, and 1 draw. So I really need to get a win here before I get too far into the hole. So, Ike, do you have your cards, and are you ready to play?
I have my cards, and I am ready to play.
All right. Well, since you're in the lead, you're going to go first. We're going to toss the heat onto you first. Your first question is, complete this quote. Quote, I ate his liver with some...
fava beans.
And you have to keep going.
Crap. As I know it's Silence of the Lambs. I know it's Hannibal Lecter. I hate his liver with fava beans. And I don't know. So I think it's a sauce, maybe.
Fava beans and a nice Chianti, which I think's the drink.
I think you're right.
All right. So there you go. Here I go. Now I got the chance now. You've missed your first one. So ball's in my court to really take this one home. So go ahead, Ike. Give me my first question.
I think this one's going to be a little difficult. You ready?
Sure.
What is the name of the serial killer in the 2004 movie Saw?
Well, I'm hoping that it is Jigsaw.
Yep, it says John Kramer or Jigsaw.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that it wanted the real name. All right, there we go. Woo! Now playing on defense. I'm not good. I'm not used to playing on defense. I'm used to playing from behind, but that's never worked for me. So we'll see how this works. Your second question. What are the names of the 2 priests that performed the exorcism on Regan in The Exorcist? Oh, you probably won't get this one.
So I just recently watched The Exorcist.
Yeah, me too.
Recently watched The Exorcist.
Me too, and I still wouldn't have remembered their names.
Give me just a second. I'm trying to think of their first names because I feel like I know their first names.
Well, it doesn't have their first names on here. It just has
is it father?
Father and father.
Balls.
Yes. So that's all I know.
Well, I think one of them's Marin.
Okay, that is one. Father Marin is one. Yes.
Because there's a scene. Yeah, sorry, don't mind my noises. So there's a scene, and it's the scene where because it's a young and an old priest. The old priest is talking to the young priest, and I'm trying to remember what he calls the young priest. Because there's also other priests in the movie too that go by their names. So it's like I could have the wrong name of one of the priests because there's like about a dozen of them. Okay. I'm going to say, and this may not even be the right person. I don't even know. Is it Karras? Father Karras?
Yes, it is Father Karras. Father Marin and Father
shit.
Karras. Oh, boy. There we go. So we're tied 1 apiece now. Uh-oh.
So just for the point of reference here, I think it's actually Dave's fault that I got that right because he sent me the Exorcist trailer, the new one, which we're going to talk about later, and that made me want to watch the original one, which I watched today. So that's on you, Dave.
That's the story of my life.
I think you'll get this next question. I feel pretty confident.
We'll see.
All right. At the end of the slasher film crossover Freddy vs. Jason, which horror icon walks away holding the other's severed head?
It's Jason Voorhees.
You got that right.
All right. I'm on the roll. We'll see how that continues. I'm only halfway there. All right, your third question. Set in 1630s New England, what 2015 movie involves an English farmer and his family who relocates to a forest which lurks in unknown evil?
Oh,
interesting.
Flag on the play. I have asked you this question, so.
Yes, you have. That's okay. We knew it was going to come up.
Yep. So I don't know. Do you want to skip questions that we've asked each other? Okay.
No. Just go ahead. It is what it is. It's going to come up. We can't worry about that. It's going to happen. So go ahead.
Fair. It is The Witch.
It is The Witch. Yes. So we're tied at 2 apiece. And I guarantee you're going to get your fourth question. So I've got to get at least one of my last 2.
I think you will. Okay. So the first question, or the third question, first on the card. This 2010 movie involved unwilling participants in a Nazi doctor's sadistic experiments.
Nazi doctors?
We actually have talked about this movie. I was going to say, I'll give you a hint because I don't think you've seen this movie, or maybe you have, but we have talked about this movie. We were talking about disturbing movies when we talked about it.
That didn't really help me. I'm going to say, I'm just shooting in the dark here because I really don't have any idea. I'm going to say, I don't know. Green Inferno. Just shot in the dark. I haven't seen Green Inferno.
Human Centipede.
Oh, yeah. Heck yeah. Why did I not know that? Damn. Now I got to get the last question because I know you're going to get this one. Leatherface was a character in what horror film?
I almost said the wrong thing. I'm not even going to joke with you. I almost said the wrong thing. Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
That is correct. Okay, so you're now in the lead 3-2. So I have to try to salvage a tie here.
I'm pretty sure you can get this one because we just talked about this movie not too long ago. At least it feels like it wasn't too long ago. All right. So this is a quote. So you need to name the movie. One thing about living in Santa Carla, I never could stomach all the damn vampires.
Well, I mean, is this the Lost Boys?
It sure is.
Woohoo! I'm celebrating a draw, but it is a whatever. Better than a loss. So there you have it. Another draw in the books. So at least I didn't lose.
That was a close one. I gotta admit, I was very unsure about the Exorcist question. I would have never got the Hannibal Lecter quote because I knew the fava beans part, but I never would have gotten the rest of it because I still haven't seen that movie. I guess I need to start watching movies you tell me to watch because apparently they're going to appear on cards.
Yes.
And so that was a good one. That was a good round. That was a well fought round.
It was a little suspense in that one. So fair enough. Whew. All right, let's take a break. And we will refresh our deodorant, and then we will be back with news, birthdays, anniversaries, and upcoming releases. So hang in there. Make sure you subscribe to Listen to Their Screams on your favorite podcast platform. Also, make sure you look us up on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, TikTok, and Slasher. All you have to do is look up Listen to Screams. That is Listen, the number 2 in Screams, and you can find us there. Also, make sure you go and buy yourself a Listen to Their Screams t-shirt. You can find all of our shirts at tinyurl.com/Screams Shirts.
And we're back with the news. Spread the news. All right. We have some very cool stuff coming up here first. And actually, right on the top of our list is the first trailer for The Exorcist Believer was released. This actually came out a few days ago prior to filming, or prior to this release, I should say. And honestly, this trailer looks spectacular. They've announced that this is going to be part of a trilogy, the second of which of these movies is going to be The Exorcist Deceiver, which will be the second movie in the trilogy, and has been given a release date of April 18th, 2025. You can kind of see the trend here: Believer, Deceiver. I'm not sure what the third one's going to be,
I'm
but
going on record. The third movie will be Redeemer.
I think that would probably be appropriate. I think that I don't know if I can't remember the woman's name that plays her, but I wonder if they're going to bring back the individual that plays Reagan, or if they've ever had any plans for that.
Linda Blair. She
Yeah, Linda Blair.
Yeah, I know she was at least around. Has been around in an advisory role, and they did show a picture of her in one of the scenes. There was a picture in the thing, which, by the
Yeah.
way, that picture in there is not from The Exorcist. It is from another Linda Blair movie. But anyway, so be it. So I don't know. I don't know if she'll actually have a part in it or not, but I do know that she at least has some form of an advisory type situation. They went to her, so I don't know if she was ever on set. I don't know. There's been no talk about what that means, but she has had a finger in the pie, so to speak. So hopefully it means we will see her on screen at least somewhere in the trilogy.
Yeah. I feel confident we will. I feel confident we will. But no, Exorcist the Believer, speaking solely on the trailer, though, it looks immaculate. Honestly, watching that trailer, it gave me a similar feeling to when I first watched the Evil Dead trailer. So I'm incredibly stoked for the movie. Absolutely.
Yeah, it looks really, really good. So I hope it does. I hope it is. I hope it's not one of those trailers where this is, they've been creative in the edit and the cut to make it look more appealing than it is. I'm confident, but it looks fun. It looks exciting. It looks creepy, tense, dramatic, all those things. It truly looks like a modern chapter in The Exorcist. That continuing on in that story with the advantages of the modern day filmmaking. So I'm excited. I mean, I was excited anyway, but the trailer has gotten me even more excited.
Absolutely. And we talked about it briefly, but Terrifier had a limited theatrical release and did $292,905 for the weekend. Good for 20th place. We kind of talked about it a little bit. I mean, at least in our individual experiences, the theaters were not packed. There were, I think Dave actually invited me to a fan group for Art the Clown. I think it's Art the Clown Appreciation or something like that.
Yeah, appreciate it.
And but a lot of them were posting that they also, a lot of the folks in that group, they went to screenings and whatnot, and their screenings actually looked a little more full. But in any case, it's fantastic that they put the Terrifier movie back in theaters. It got some more exposure, either from reoccurring people who've seen the movie already, or from people who've never seen the movie. In any case, I'm glad it happened. Regardless of how packed the theater was.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a good time. Again, there was a few people in ours, but not a lot. But it was a Wednesday night, so I mean, take that for what it is. But they only did Wednesday night showings in this town, so it didn't have a big run. There was not a lot of screens. There was not a lot of showings. But I'm assuming in bigger cities, bigger markets, it is done well. And but it doesn't matter. I don't care. I mean, I'm glad has done fairly well. I mean, with no marketing, really nothing behind it, it did all right. I was just glad for the opportunity to go see it. And Monica went with me, and I kept stressing to her going in, you're not going to like this movie. I'm just, and she's like, oh, whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. She actually surprisingly liked the movie more than she thought. She's not a big fan of a lot of gore. So like the hacksaw scene was not really her cup of tea. Things like that. But overall, she liked the movie, and she really liked David Howard Thornton, his portrayal of Art, and she liked the character of Art and how the mannerisms and the facials and the silence and all those aspects that go into making him as creepy as he is. So I was pleasantly surprised that she actually enjoyed it more than we suspected. And I very much then liked some of the post movie post credit stuff where
Yeah.
they were showing people's tattoos and cosplays and art and different things like that. It was also, I really liked how they showed that kind of it was just a brief thing, but the history of art where they went all the way back to All Hallows Eve and all these things. It just these little clips showing that that he's been around for a bit, and he's developed into this. So it was pretty cool. But it was a lot of fun. It was really really great seeing it on a theater screen.
Yeah, absolutely, and I agree. The post credit stuff was cool, and it's weird because sorry, you mentioned David Howard Thornton, and you mentioned the other stuff too, because for people who don't know, Art the Clown originally appeared in a short film called The Ninth Circle, and then he actually got The Terrifier was another short film, and then both of those got compiled into a anthology film called All Hallows Eve.
Yes, which was not David Howard Thornton. He did not play
which
him.
was not.
Yeah, in those.
Yeah.
So.
Which is unfortunate because David Howard Thornton is, no offense to the guy in All Hallows Eve, because I still like All Hallows Eve, but David Howard Thornton is sublime and eons better than whomever they had to play him in the original film.
Yeah.
No offense, but just preference. But absolutely though, if you I've actually seen a couple places that still have it out and about, so you might be able to still see it. Not really sure, just kind of depends on the theater. But if not, I heard it's actually coming to Netflix soon. Terrifier is, so
Cool.
people who have a Netflix subscription, and I believe that you can watch it on Tubi for free, so if you haven't already, go watch it, you'll like it. Moving on. Moving on. Nika Toys. This is an announcement just for Dave, of course. No, I'm kidding. They have their upcoming Toonie Terror Series 9, which will feature the Tar Man from Return of the Living Dead. I love Return of the Living Dead. Vincent Price. I mean, who doesn't like Vincent Price? The Fiend from the Misfits band, the mascot for the Misfits band specifically. And, of course, Megan. That's quite the lineup. I love Return of the Living Dead. In fact, I hear that they're remaking it. Obviously, Vincent Price is ageless and classic. I'm not sure I'm familiar with The Fiend, but of course I like Megan as well. So that's a good lineup.
Yeah, the Megan one looks really cool. And if anybody wants to see pictures, we did share pictures on our social media. If you saw the Fiend, you would know, because the face of the Fiend is what's on the Misfits, a lot of their albums, their shirts. You'll know. Even if you're not familiar with the Misfits, almost everybody has seen a Misfits shirt out there. It's very recognizable. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's they continue to really get lots of cool characters, and I just like the concept. I like how they do them, and the looks of these. They're a lot of fun. I love Vincent Price. I'm excited about that, but I'm super excited about that Megan. It looks really really cool, and she's perfect for this line.
Sorry, I just looked it up real quick, and I do in fact recognize the Fiend. I was definitely that's like the guy that's like on all their covers and stuff like that. So cool. I know who it is. Very awesome. But yeah, absolutely. Quick reminder: follow us on social media if you haven't already, because like Dave just said, we share a lot of this stuff on there. So if you want to be kept up to date on some of this stuff, follow us. Anyways. Upcoming birthdays, we have some very awesome birthdays. We have August 2nd, 1939, Wes Craven, the horror master, one of the horror masters. You know him from such great films such as Scream, and even more Scream. Honestly, it's probably one of his best works in my opinion. He has all kinds of other. Yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street, probably his best work. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, how many guys can say they launched two such iconic movie franchises? That's pretty remarkable.
Truly it is. And then, of course, August 2nd, 1953, we have another horror icon, one of Dave's favorites, Butch Patrick, who plays Eddie Munster. Obviously, the Munsters are we've had a whole episode about the Munsters, so feel free to check that out. But the Munsters, classic Munsters, Eddie Munster, Butch Patrick, very cool. I've actually seen him in person too. He came to Pensacola for a horror convention last year. So
yeah, he does a lot of appearances. Yeah, he's very much out there and active. So
That's awesome. And then last but certainly not least, August 2nd, 1970, Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith, he's mostly known for some of his more surreal comedies like Clerks 1, 2, and 3, Mallrats, Dogma. But he's also made a handful of, horror slash borderline horror like Red State,
Tusk.
or Tusk. Yeah, I was like having a hard time remembering. Yoga Hosers was another one that he was involved in, which is kind of comedy horror more than anything. But Kevin Smith, he's a fantastic creator. He does a lot of great stuff. So you know, just got to give him props.
Yeah, I mean, again, he has done some horror, but I put him. I love Kevin Smith, right? I love his movies, so I thought, he's a big enough name. I know there's some people love him, some people hate him, some people are indifferent, but I'm a Kevin Smith fan. I very much enjoy his movies, so I threw him in here. And like I said, he's done a couple horror movies, so it's enough to get him on the roster.
Yes, absolutely. All right. And then we have a couple of upcoming movie anniversaries, more than a couple. We have July 27, 1979, The Amityville Horror, a classic in the possession slash haunted house genre. I love the Amityville Horror. I even like the remake with Ryan Reynolds. I mean, he's shirtless in it, so you can't go wrong with shirtless Ryan Reynolds. Dave, your thoughts about Amityville Horror?
Yeah, I love it. I love the Amityville Horror. I've always loved it, and it's definitely an iconic horror film.
Yeah, absolutely. That the face of the house, iconic. I could see it from anywhere. And then, of course, July 20th, 1989, arguably one of the best Friday 13 movies was released. Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. Come on, man. Jason Takes Manhattan. It's the cheesiest, the goofiest, and just overall most outlandish of the Friday 13th movies outside of Jason X, but I don't talk about Jason X. I love it. 100% love it.
Me too. One of my favorites. Absolutely hands down one of my favorites. Just it is everything I like in a horror movie. So fun, so cheesy, so entertaining, so 80s. It's one of my comfort horror movies.
Absolutely. And we just talked about this, but July 31st, 1987, The Lost Boys. The Lost Boys is I would say it's a gem in horror. Lost Boys definitely, it breaks new ground with the concept of vampires, brings it into the new age, has a lot of fantastic people in it. Corey Haim, um,
Kiefer Sutherland.
Kiefer Sutherland, Corey
Yeah, I mean
Feldman.
Corey
That was
Feldman.
the other
Yeah,
one I was trying to remember.
yeah. I mean, there's so many people in it. It is vampires are very secular, right? It
Yeah.
seems like every so often something comes out that kind of brings it to a different era and brings it to a more current level, right? A more current hipness. I mean, even for its time, Dracula was very beautiful, very hip, very elegant for that time. The Lost Boys definitely did that. The Hammer stuff in the 70s very much did that. Well, I'm not a huge fan. Even the Twilight movies, right, brought vampires into that current feel. There's always, vampire movies that do that, and in the 80s, the Lost Boys did it. But in the process, I mean, it's just a timeless film. It is so good.
Yes, absolutely. And then, of course, we have another, in my opinion, very underrated horror film from the 2000s, July 31st, 2009, The Collector. I've seen both The Collector and The Collection, and frankly, in my opinion, they're probably two of the best, movies in terms of a original and a sequel to be produced, one right after the other. Very good films. If you've not seen them, I highly recommend them. Honestly, The Collector is hard to find streaming. The
Yeah,
Collection is it's streaming quite a few places if I remember correctly.
yeah, they're very underappreciated movies. They're actually really really good, but they don't get talked about much. And I don't know if it is that it's kind of hard to find, hard to scroll through and watch. But yeah, I like them. I like them a lot.
Absolutely. And then two more for us. We have August 1st, 1986, Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. I'm trying to remember which one Jason Lives. Is this the one where he's brought back from the dead from being electrocuted? Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yeah, that's what the older Tommy
Yep.
that gets arrested and put in the cell, and the sheriff's daughter or whatever helps him get out and stuff like that. Yeah, but where they attempt at the beginning, Tommy attempts to finish off Jason once for all, whatever. It backfires, and what they stab him with becomes a lightning rod, which revitalizing. So yeah, this is the one with zombie Jason.
Yep, I do love Zombie Jason. Obviously, Jason Lives is not my favorite Friday the 13th, but Zombie Jason's my favorite zombie, my favorite
Yeah.
Jason.
Yeah, it's a fun movie.
It is, absolutely. And then lastly, but not least, we have August 2nd, 1985, Fright Night. So I've never actually personally seen Fright Night, but I've heard a lot of amazing stuff about it. So this is also on my list of movies that I need to watch.
Yeah. It is a fun movie. It is really really good. It's an 80s movie, but it's fun. It's fun watch. It feels 80s. It's got that whole vibe to it. But you really need to watch Friday Night. Maybe you need to watch through the In Search of Darkness list so you can catch up on some of these old 80s movies.
Apparently. But that does it for movie anniversaries. We do have some upcoming releases. Saw X has been announced as releasing 1 month earlier than the previously announced date. It will now be released on September 29th in theaters. I frankly think this is probably the best thing that they could have done. It was originally supposed to open the same weekend as Five Nights at Freddy's. And as much as I love Saw, it would have been squashed by Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah. I mean, they, originally I'm sure they penciled it in, around Halloween, around that time of year. But yeah, smart move. And it's also awesome that a lot of times you see movies get pushed out further, but it's so it's cool that they change the date and they bring it in closer to you, so it makes it even more exciting, right? They kind of they solve the issue of going head to head with that the guaranteed monster that's going to be out there, but then they also did it by bringing it in closer, which is kind of a win-win for them, right? It gives it, I don't know, it gives it just more. Oh yeah, well you don't have to wait as long for it. So it is it's great. I can't wait to watch it. I believe this one
Yeah.
they said was set during between 2 and 3. I think is what I'm hearing. So I'm curious to see.
Yeah.
He goes to Mexico or something for treatment, and so I'm not sure. What happens in this, but I intend closer to time to rewatch the Saw movies to get a better vibe for which is which, because I haven't watched them in a while, so it kind of blurs.
Yeah, just real quick, it says, set between the chapters are the events of Saw 1 and 2. A sick and desperate John travels to Mexico for risky and experimental medical procedure in hopes of a miracle for a cure for his cancer, only to discover the entire operation is a scam to defraud the most vulnerable. And armed with a newfound purpose, the serial killer returns to his work, turning the tables on the con artist and his signature visceral way through devious, deranged, and ingenious traps.
Okay, so
That
between 1 and
sounds
2, not 2
amazing.
and 3. And it's like they're making him they're kind of making him the hero of this a little bit. Sounds like interesting.
See, that's the thing. It's actually something I hear online a lot. It's like, is John Kramer truly a bad guy? And like,
Yeah.
and like, I'm not gonna argue the moral implications. Just simply speaking, from some of these people were kind of assholes, but do they deserve to be tortured? Probably not.
Yeah.
Uh, but that's just me.
I'm
Um,
looking forward to it though.
oh, 100%. I'm very excited. So we also have coming out this weekend. We actually have two movies coming out this weekend. We have Talk to Me, which is a movie we're actually reviewing next week.
Mm-hmm.
But we are also seeing another fantastic horror film or horror adjacent film. We have the remake of Haunted Mansion. It is out this weekend in theaters. Both of those are going to be great movies. Check them out. Haunted Mansion is going to be more kid friendly, so if you've got young ones, take them to that. Or fuck it, take them to see Terrifier. I don't give a shit.
Sure.
Maybe cover their eyes during the Saw scene, but do whatever you want, man. And then lastly, or actually not lastly, there's two more. Good Lord. All right, next weekend, August 4th, we have Meg 2, The Trench, starring Jason Statham. I will say I did like Meg 1, so I'll probably give this a watch once it's out on streaming, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, this is not it'll be fun enough, but this is not a theater movie for me.
Agreed. The first one wasn't a theater going movie for me. I watched it on streaming. I was like, And then finally, lastly, but not least, Five Nights at Freddy's will be released October 27, 2023 in theaters, and it will have a same-day simul release on, I believe, Paramount or Peacock, one of the two. I think Paramount. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Somebody fact check me in the comments. But it's been given a rating of PG-13 for strong, violent content, bloody images, and language. As a video game fan, I am incredibly excited for this movie. This is something I've definitely been looking forward to for a very long time. You know, it has some of my favorite actors in it. You know, Matthew Lillard, Josh Hutcherson, both of them are fantastic, fantastic actors. So I'm extremely excited for this movie. So, and I know Dave's probably gonna watch it too.
Yeah, I think we can. I mean, I think we'll review it. I think this sounds like something that we should review at that time. And yeah, sounds fun. I mean, it says strong violent content, bloody images, and language. Hey, those are three of my favorite things.
That's
So,
right. Hey, that's right. Hey, that's the magic word right there. All right. Well, you guys have heard it here. You've heard all this news. This is some good shit. Follow us on social media. I'll say it again. Selfless self-promotion. That's what this game is about, guys. Follow us on social media. You won't regret it. But in the meantime, we're going to pause. But when we come back, we're going to have our very own review of Natty Knocks. Stick around.
Listen to Their Screams is now a Fangoria collaborator. Get 20% off your order at shop.fangoria.com by using the promo code LISTEN2SCREAMS at checkout. That is listen, the number 2, and screams. Or you can click the link in the show notes. All right, and we are back on Listen to Their Screams, and it is time for our review. In this episode, we're reviewing Natty Knocks, which had a limited theatrical release and a release on video on demand. It is described as a small-town babysitter and the kids she are watching struggle to survive a serial killer on Halloween Eve. It is written by Benjamin Olson, directed by Dwight H. Little, starring Charlotte Fountain Jardim, Thomas Roby, Noan Perez, Danielle Harris, Bill Mosley, and Robert Englund. Who Robert Englund didn't have a very big part in this, really, but it was an integral part, but he didn't last very long in it. But he's so good. He's so good in everything he does. Just he's so believable, no matter what he does. And I have to say, I mean, the movie was okay. It got started for me, and I was a little, I don't want to say confused, but I had a wonderment of how they were going to kind of pull it together. It started with the whole Natty Knocks thing and her being burned alive in a building for being a witch, and they kept talking about a book. And I thought the book was like probably some kind of spell book or something, but it turned out to be a ledger because she was also a prostitute. And so it turned out to be a ledger of men she had slept with. We find out this all later from Robert Englund. And I kept watching thinking, well, what does this got to do with any of this? I mean, there was this whole legend, or local legend of Natty Knocks and all this and that. But I have to say, I mean, it was okay. Again, some of the acting I think was a little off. It didn't feel quite believable on some of their parts. I think it was pretty. Again, we mentioned the spoiler warning on this, and we're getting ready to dive into that territory. I think you get the vibe early on that the kid at the opening scene is probably the guy that's killing people later in the movie. They explain, even though they try to swerve you by saying he was dead, you still pretty much knew or believed, this is probably him. And it did turn out to be him, and they explained, how he kind of faked his own death, assumed another identity, became a police officer, and was still killing people. Then was pursuing these kids because they saw him kill another woman, and again early on I was confused as to him watching the movies. I thought, what is that? What does this have to do with anything? And they did explain it. I obviously kept the open mind. They did explain it that his mom, who was Natty Knocks, did some drive-in B-level horror movies, and that's what he was watching, things like that. He was obviously had some issues where he thought the films were talking. There ended up being a possession involved, and so anyway, it was a little kind of all over the place. It really, I don't know. It was a little bit of a cluster here and there. Some of the acting was a little hokey. It was nice to see Danielle Harris in something. She didn't have a huge role. She played the kid's mom. I thought the girl who played the babysitter did an outstanding job. I thought she was really good. The kids were okay. The one friend was a little annoying. Robert Englund, for his brief time, was excellent. Bill Moseley did a great job as the killer. Um, it was, I don't know, it was okay. Wasn't anything spectacular. Didn't break any ground, but it did feel like a nice little homage to some of that low level, uh, quick to rush kind of 80s straight to video kind of horror type stuff. That's what it felt like. It even had kind of that appearance there at the beginning and stuff. So, but it was okay. It was not a bad little watch. Nothing, like I said, nothing groundbreaking though. Ike, what do you think of it?
You know, I mean, you pretty much said it. Nothing groundbreaking. I don't want to go as far as say that I dislike the movie, but I probably won't be watching Natty Knocks again. Like you said, it was one of those movies where you kind of have to watch it for what it is. It's a project of people who want to basically put themselves out there and, just have fun, I suppose. I think my biggest issue with this movie is the writing was just all over the place. Had they maybe chosen one or two of those horror tropes, but it just felt like they were really trying to fit as much bullshit as they could into one movie. What I mean by that, just to elaborate, and Dave kind of mentioned it already, but like you start the movie off, you have the prostitution gimmick, you know what I mean? You kind of pick up on that. She's burned alive, so you kind of have that witch gimmick. And then you already can kind of tell that like the kid's going to be scarred from this. So you already know that kid's going to have some shit to do with some stuff later. And then you kind of get that slasher gimmick, you get the ghost haunting gimmick, you get the possession gimmick. And honestly, I felt like if they cut out a lot of the bullshit, if they cut out all of the paranormal stuff, and I mean all of it,
Yeah,
it would have been a much better movie.
I completely agree. If there had not been, I don't know what that weird possession thing was at the end where Natty Knox was possessing him, the son, and then possessed the babysitter. That was really just stuck on there at the end. That was unnecessary. It had nothing to do with anything. Some of the little weird witchy stuff at the beginning. I'm okay with them wanting us to think that maybe she was a witch and they thought she was a witch, and later the Robert Englund character referred to her as they thought she was a hippie witch kind of thing. I'm okay with you that mistaken, burned at the stake Salem, thinking she was a witch, but she wasn't really a witch. I understand that, but the possession thing had nothing to do with the entire movie. I don't know. I was good with it just being the psychologically scarred kid from seeing what they did to his mom becomes this guy, and that's where it went. I was good with that. It didn't need any of that possession type stuff. That just didn't add anything to it. It just was a distraction. It was hokey. Didn't work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you said, hokey, that's probably the best way to put it, because when you have these movies, you have to play to your strengths. And with B movies, one of your strengths is not a huge special effects budget. And we talked about this with the Cannibal Cabin. Had they not shown the baby at all, you know what I mean? We're still talking about the baby months later, okay? And we will probably continue to talk about the baby for years to come. So had you not included all this possession stuff, you didn't have to include any of the bullshit with the, spookiness or any of that, special effects attempts, because at the end, you see the guy get shot a couple times and then, he becomes unpossessed or whatever because he dies. Whatever. And then you kind of lead this story to believe that another girl gets possessed and whatnot. And that's fine. But it should have been either or. It should have either been solely a possession movie or solely a slasher movie. And I think by mixing the two, they're trying to create some weird, like, multi-blended genre that just, quite frankly, I don't think was going to work.
Yeah.
I think there were a lot of things that they did good. I think some of the casting was fantastic. Like you said, the babysitter was fantastic. Even the kids were great. The kids were, entertaining. Like you said, Danielle Harris is in it. That's great. Good for her. Bill Moseley wasn't horrible in it. For what Robert Englund did, he was great. You know what I mean? It was cool not seeing him as not the murdering villain. You know what I mean? So it was great to see those faces, and even some of the new faces that we really haven't seen before per se. They did great. They did a great job. But I feel like the thing that really held this movie back was the fact that they really tried to shove so much shit in this movie. And it's like, I get it. It's a B movie. You only have so much runtime. You want to try and get all your concepts on paper. This might be the only time you might be able to do that. Who knows? Who knows the justification or the reasoning or rationale? And this is not to say that you should watch Natty Knocks, but just go into it with managed expectations, because frankly, I went into it with a little bit of heightened expectations just because of the people who are in the movie.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the reason maybe why I was a little more disappointed. I will be honest, my wife didn't like the movie. She told me, she's like, I would give that a 1 out of 5 because she watches the podcast, so she knows our scream rating. So she's like, I'd give that 1 scream out of 5, or maybe 2 screams. I can't remember what she said. And I was like, I wouldn't go that low, but I was like, it definitely was like, it was lower for me. But like I said, I think if I just cannot get over, like, who said to themselves, let's throw possession, slasher, witches, this, that, and the other all in the same movie, because it's just too much. I mean,
Yeah.
you would think that any filmmaker could probably tell you that you're working with too much. Too many hands in the pot is not a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. Again, I would have been fine with them teasing the witch thing that these people thought, whatever, that's fine, whatever. And then, doing the traumatic slasher thing through it. But none of the possession stuff worked. They just it seemed like they kind of threw that in the end. And it seemed like it was mainly for the sake of trying to get the babysitter, tripping there at the end thinking she was something. And I don't, I think you could have still pulled something very similar by just having her kind of having this odd look on her face of, well, what has the trauma been done to her, right? It could be based on the trauma, right? The trauma of the mother caused this guy to do this. This babysitter's going through this. Well, will the trauma impact her? Will it have a negative effect on her? And just kind of leave it hanging. I didn't think we needed the possession. It was too much. I was fine with them. What I was hoping that they were just going to dispel the Natty Knocks thing as just a local folk tale, and they were just going to kind of pull that away of, well, here's the truth, right? There's this woman was killed. She had a surviving kid who we think got killed in this asylum thing. I was pretty good with the fact that I felt like I was hoping that they were going to peel away that there was this folktale. Let's get to what the root of what started this lore, and what that sometimes it's just as tragic and just as dark, but just in a different way. Right. And then it's like they didn't, though. There was that, but then they like tried to loop it back around to, oh well, yeah, there's still some of the. It didn't work. The whole possession thing with when he got killed and then she left the son's body and was floating there, that didn't work. It was not needed. Didn't add anything to the movie. It didn't give that suspenseful of an ending that it was necessary. And I don't know. Again, the movie was okay. It was not highly enjoyable for me. It's not a rewatch movie for me. I am disappointed because of, while the people in it did well. Again, we discussed this when we briefly discussed the strike last time. You can have some really good actors, but if they're not given the right material, it just doesn't work. And this was not the right material. It was it's just they were dabbling their lines in too many different ponds, and they weren't catching anything. And they really should have just narrowed in. It's there's this analogy, right, of in music where if you're a musician, a long-term success, a lot of long-term successful musicians and successful albums, you're not all over the place, right? You find your theme or your sound for that album, and you stick to that, right? And it can differ across your career, and it can grow and evolve and whatever. But if you have an album that's all over the place with all these different styles, it doesn't work as an album, right? It just feels weird and it feels uneasy and it doesn't flow. And that's what this was. There was all these different styles and it didn't flow. And it's like you were trying to force puzzle pieces together that didn't fit, and it didn't work. It didn't work at all for me. And again, I was very, very disappointed because the people in it, I really was hoping for a lot, expecting a lot, I think, out of it. I guess I was at least expecting it to be more enjoyable than it was. And it was kind of a letdown. I could see why this really didn't get a bigger release, and everything. I kind of understand, why it probably wouldn't. So,
Right.
it was a little just a little bit of a clusterfuck. It just too many things trying to happen, and I think they kind of lost the path a little bit by trying to put too much in. So
Yeah. I one last thing I wanted to add is that even if they included all of this stuff in one movie, right? Even if they wanted to throw all of this stuff at you at once, it didn't seem coherent. That was another thing. Is I can give credit where credit is due. You know, had they created a story, even if it was a complex and somewhat trivial story, I can still give them credit for it if it made sense. And in this case,
yeah,
to me, it just didn't make sense.
I agree. It was just I spent too much of the movie wondering what was going on and why certain things were being dropped. And then when they tried to explain some of them, I was more than of the okay, why? Why is that there? That doesn't really add anything to the core here. I don't know. There was no. I'm okay with being left wondering through the movie until you get some payoff and some explanation. But then when you get the explanation and you don't get that feeling of okay, it was more of a all right, I guess. But why? When when the explanation just causes more questions, I don't think that's a good sign. But so Ike, unless you got any more to say on it, let's get into rating this thing.
Right.
So we're talking Natty Knocks, and I'm kind of leaning Kayla way here. I'm not going to give it a 1. I don't think it's that bad. But for me, I think I'm gonna have to give this thing a 2 screams out of 5. Like we've always said, a 3 is something that's pretty enjoyable, kind of middle of the road. And I just don't think this was there for me. I think this missed a lot more than it hit. So I'm going to give this a 2 out of 5.
Yep. Like you said, I don't think I'm gonna go quite 1 out of 5 like Kayla did, but I am gonna say 2 out of 5 because as much as I dislike giving twos, at the same time, it's like, did I hate the movie? No. But did I enjoy the movie? Not exactly. Can I appreciate the movie for certain things? Certainly. So, 2 out of 5 it is.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I could pick certain things out of it that were okay. But yeah, just if I judge it overall as an entire piece of work, I don't think those elements all fit together right. So there you have it, a cumulative 2 out of 5 for Natty Knocks. Make sure you go out there, watch this for yourself. Tell us what you think. What would you give it out of 5 screams? Let us know if you agree, disagree, if you think we were too harsh, if you think we were too easy. We'd like some feedback on what you think the movie deserves. So we like the interaction. We like the discussions. That's what we say. We say this is a podcast that feels like you're discussing, talking with friends about horror movies. So now we're to that stage of, hey, let's talk. Let's discuss horror movies and get some feedback. So, but a 2 out of 5 on Natty Knocks for us here at Listen to Those Screams, which brings us towards the end of this episode. Next episode, as we mentioned earlier, we are going to be reviewing Talk to Me, which is in theaters July 28th, the day after this is released. And my early indications, I've heard nothing but good stuff about this online.
Yeah.
I've heard this is a kind of a sleeper that people aren't talking a lot about, but it's surprisingly good, and I'm very excited to see it. I've also heard a lot of talk. Have you heard about Cobweb, a movie out there called Cobweb? But there is no place around me showing it, no place even remotely near. So I'm looking forward to that, hitting video on demand to watch that. But anyway, next episode, Talk to Me, which I'm excited to see. I've heard lots of good stuff about it. So I got high expectations. We'll see what happens. But I'm ready. I'm ready for something to knock the socks off of me again, and make me tremble a little and give me some terror. I still stand by Evil Dead Rise is setting the bar for the year for me, but we'll see how where Talk to Me comes in on that rating. So, Ike, are you looking forward to Talk to Me?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, funnily enough, my wife, she was the one that originally showed me the trailer for Talk to Me. It's an A24 production, so obviously I'm going to support A24. I'm super excited for it. I have also heard of Cobwebs. Similar to you, I don't think anywhere near me is showing it. But I've heard a lot of good stuff about Cobwebs. So as soon as it comes out on streaming, I'll be for sure watching that. But yeah, Talk to Me is for sure going to be one of those movies because it actually came out last year, but it was an Australian film, I believe. So I think that it's going to be a like you said, it's going to be a sleeper. You know what I mean? People are not going to expect this to be as good as it is. It has just fantastic concept, so I'm super excited for it. And I'm going to be watching it probably on Saturday.
Yeah. I hope it gets a following. I hope
Yeah.
the word of mouth gets out there quick and it starts spreading, and it really, I would like to see it have a nice strong run. But even if it doesn't debut real strong, I would like that word of mouth for it to really kind of build and kind of maybe move up a little bit as it goes on. But regardless, I'm looking forward to seeing it and looking forward to discussing it next episode. So make sure you subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform so that you don't miss any episode, including that one next week when we talk about Talk to Me. Make sure you give us a rating and a review because that helps us in those platform algorithms come up when people are listening to other horror podcasts or looking for horror podcasts. That helps us come up with those searches, come up with those recommended podcast shows. So help us out there. Make sure you share the episodes when we put them out on social media. Help us network and spread our following. And you can also do that by following us on social media. We're on all the platforms that were mentioned earlier. Pretty much on all of them, all you have to do is look up Listen to Screams. That is Listen the number 2 in Screams. If there's a social media platform, chances are we are on it, and chances are we're posting regularly. We're posting all these anniversaries and birthdays, and then some of the hot news when it hits. Some of the stuff we put in the show, we're posting it online as it happens, and then talking about it in the show later. Because some of it, like the Exorcist trailer and some of these things, some of it's just too impactful, too important. So we share it first online, so you can get it breaking a lot of times by there. So make sure you follow us on social media. So before we close this out and get out of here, anything you want to add?
Trying to think of something. Random thing that happened. I forgot to mention earlier. I tried honeydew for the first time in years. It was really good. It's really sweet.
Like a honeydew melon?
Yeah, honeydew melon. I haven't had honeydew in probably like 10, 15 years, I feel like.
Yeah, they're good.
Because cantaloupe, watermelons, good melons, but honeydew is pretty good too.
Yeah. I'm pretty much a fan of all the melons. I like the melons. Give me
Same.
Our dogs are very big watermelon eaters. They love watermelon, and they get that quite often as a treat. But they do like the watermelon. So, all right, there you go. There's your wisdom for the week. Honeydew's pretty good. That's Ike's wisdom of the week.
Amen.
Honeydew's pretty good. Natty Knocks, not so much. But
exactly.
Maybe if they thrown some honeydew in that movie, you would have been like, yeah, it's going to get you another scream or two there, just for the honeydew.
Amen.
So until next week, when again we will be reviewing Talk to Me, and we'll have all the news and games and fun that you're used to. Wherever you go and whatever you do, be good, be safe, and have many pleasant nightmares.